Hi guys, this is Seth Christensen with the Got Any Cows podcast. 20 years ago, I was an 11-year-old kid with 2 bucket calves. Today, we have sent genetics from our company to 40 of the 50 states and 12 countries around the world. I still learn more every day, and I invite you to learn along with me. Well, I'm lucky to be here with my buddy Doug Slaby of Slaby Akaushi Ranch. We're here at the Akaushi Convention in Kansas City and lucky enough to record an episode of the Got Any Cows podcast while we're here. So Doug, if you would, do us a favor, introduce yourself, tell people that haven't met you, who are you?
Sure, thanks. First of all, thanks for taking the time and giving me the opportunity to be on your podcast. It's a real honor. My name is Doug Slaby. I live in Stoughton, Wisconsin. We recently just started a first-generation Akaushi ranch named Slaby Akaushi Ranch, and it's my wife and my 2 sons. We've literally been going for about a year now. But prior to that, I have been an owner in a commercial construction company in Madison area. My brother and I, we've had that for 20 years. This year, we're celebrating our 20th year. My wife and my 2 sons are also owners in a multiple facility sports complex, 2 forecourt facilities, one in Stoughton and one in Verona. My brother and I own a commercial real estate brokerage firm that we love to spend some time and do some things that really has helped us out on the construction side, where we kind of get in on the front end of some projects. And then my brother and I also have a commercial development company. So
Love it.
Yeah, we've always been busy. We've kind of always just done our thing. It's been great.
Yeah, love it. So I mean, you've taught me a ton. I've really enjoyed our conversations. As you and I have talked over the course of the last year or two, we've been able to talk Akaushi cattle and something that I deal with and I'm comfortable with. And I've been able to learn a ton from your business experience and from your 20 years, of doing business in the construction industry. And walk us through a little bit, I guess, your time in the construction industry, your time building out the sports complexes, and then how that turned into Akaushi cattle. How did we get here for somebody that spent 20 years in construction?
Sure, and 20 years is probably even a very conservative timeline. So my father grew up on a large dairy farm.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yes, and him and his brothers and sisters, there's 7 of them. His dad, my grandpa, had bought, I think they ran at one point up to 4 farms.
Oh, really?
And it was big, and my dad enjoyed it, but he really always had a passion for the construction side of things on the farm, right?
Okay, yeah.
So he kind of left the farm and went into the construction industry, and always had a passion for the farm still, but had way more of a passion for the construction. And so me growing up, my dad had started basically a residential construction company, some light commercial. And I can remember at 12 years old, my first summer, we would go help him every day. And I enjoyed it. I remember my first job, I tended block for a basement for 3 guys by myself, mixed the mud in the wheelbarrow, stacked the blocks.
Tended block. What is tended block for the uneducated?
Yeah, no worries. So you're mixing the mortar because we didn't have any power on the site, right?
Oh,
so you mix
gotcha.
the mortar that they use in the wheelbarrow.
Oh, man.
You keep the block on the scaffolding in front of them while you still keep them busy with the mortar. Not saying that they didn't ever help me out, but I did for the most part. It was a 42-hour week. I'll never forget. I was 12 so I must have been 13, going into 7th grade. And that was my first job that I got paid. And I remember thinking to myself, man, this is hard work, but it's kind of fun. The guys treated me really good. And I remember getting paid at the end of the week, and it was $42. I got $1 an hour. And I thought to myself, this isn't so bad.
Yeah.
$42 at 13 years old goes a long ways.
You bet.
And so from then, I just I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed learning. And when you're in construction, it's so much different than anything else. Like when you're in the general contractor world, it's not just one specific trade that you need to learn, right?
Right.
There's so many different types of construction methods. There's wood, there's steel, there's conventional steel, there's pre-engineered. There's so many different types of construction methods that you have to learn, which really kept me engaged.
Yeah.
And it is a trade or a skill that you don't learn overnight, because there are some, you have to understand all the MEPs, everything that goes in.
MEPs.
Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, you have to understand all of that. So it was, what kept me interested was learning.
Yeah.
And I did that throughout my whole high school career. I actually, honestly, never have had another job beside construction.
Straight construction.
I've never done anything else.
Yep.
I take that back. I did load up turkeys one night. And that was it for me. I was not going to do that again. I did finish out the whole night. It was the most dirtiest, darkest, horrible job. And it was brutal.
We're not getting into turkey genetics.
No, we're not
next.
getting into turkeys. Loading them big things into them small crates, very difficult. But anyway, I did do that. But that's it. And so, I just decided right out of high school that I was just going to stay in the trades. I stayed working with my dad. We decided to branch off. I wanted to get more into the commercial end of it, so I went a different route and took a job with, I thought was a good opportunity with another commercial company. Grew it. My brother and I have kind of always worked together. We worked with my dad. We've worked with in the commercial carpentry stuff, and then, we just decided it was time to do our own thing, and we took the chance, and we've grown it from there. So construction has really been my main life. We then decided that, look, with all the development that we want to do, I think it made more sense for us to get our broker's license. So my brother Dean became a broker, and I've worked with him on the sales side of it. And then that helped us to get it a little bit more on the front end of construction projects. Sure. Ground right. When somebody's looking for a building, they don't even have the land. Well, we can help you with the land, and we can help you with the building. So that worked out really well. Then we started building our own buildings, and we talk about the sports complex. So we actually ended up, myself, my brother, and another gentleman built the building. It's a 77,000 square foot building with multiple tenants in it, and
77,000 square feet.
Yes, so it has a banquet facility, it has a rehab facility, it has a 24-hour gym fitness, it has a eye doctor, a pizza place. It's a multiple functional building, right? And we had somebody set to take the gym as a lease, right? And we built the building, we were just about done, and the guy went, he just no longer in business. So we're sitting around thinking, what do we do? So my brother and I said, look, we both had young kids, both involved in sports. I said, I'm going to spend a lot of time here anyway. So we decided we were going to take over the gym, and we started it. It was a lot more than we bargained for, I'm not going to lie. Any business you start from scratch is tough, but it is a challenge that we liked, and we loved it, and the kids were there, and the kids bought into it. And lo and behold, the other facility that this other gentleman had, the bank had taken it, and they had contacted us about a year and a half after we were running the new one and said, would you want to take this over? And, we did.
So that it ended up being in the first building. Did you have one or two courts? And then
we had 4 courts in the first building.
Courts in the first
and
one.
then we took over the other space that had 4 courts in that facility.
So now you've got 8
we have
basketball
8 courts.
courts.
Yep, and they're about 15 minutes away as a crow flies. And it's been working out really good. So my oldest son, both of my sons went on to college to play basketball because they love it. My oldest son went to Loris in Dubuque and played basketball, had some knee issues. His career was kind of cut short. But he went into sports management, and knowing that he loved with what he did. And to his credit, kids in college on the weekends, they, do what they do, right? Well, he came back. When we had big events, he came back every weekend and worked it. He showed it. He wanted to be a part of it. So I really felt comfortable with that. And my youngest one, who is 6 years younger than my oldest, so my boys are 33 and 26 now, so 7 years, excuse me. And he went on to play basketball at Winona State. Okay. And so he went into business. So he got a business degree, and he actually finished his career up in Madison, UW-Madison. And so they had all along wanted to take over the sports facilities. And we had talked to them about, my brother and I took our 3 sons to Florida. And we said, hey, do you guys have any interest in this construction? And, it's a good business. It's a great opportunity. And his son said yes, and my son said no. We love what we're doing here.
With the sports facility.
Yeah, with the sports facilities. That's their passion, right?
Yeah.
So they stayed there, and my brother's son is in the construction industry, and now he's actually got a small, minor amount of ownership. So it's great. And anyway, so we built that up, and the kids have been running that, and my wife she literally ran the facilities by herself. While the boys were in school and while I was working full-time construction. It was impressive. And
Hats off to Amy.
My sons they owe her a debt of gratitude because it was
sir.
a tough 5 years, Sure.
Oh,
And anyway, so she knew she had to do it because she wanted it there to give them that opportunity. Yeah. And they've taken it and ran with it. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling on here, but
No, it's good, and that gives us a feel for kind of
at
how
the end
you
of the
got to where you're
day,
at.
everything we just kind of kept growing our businesses. And in the construction world, we've done it for so long. I've been in it since really since about 13 or 14 years old at some point. I'm at 56 years old today, and my sons didn't have a ton of interest in the construction industry, so it was time for me to start thinking about phasing out of this. And I had always had a passion for the agricultural side of things, knowing that when I was younger, especially now, knowing how much it costs to get into this industry. I thought construction was expensive, but yeah, it's not the same. They're very close to the same, and it takes
a lot of money.
It's tough. I don't know how young people do it today. I really don't, with the land costs and equipment costs and animal costs and vet costs, and it's never ending. And so Amy and I'd always talk to her and said, look, when I retire, I don't want to just sit at the lake. I don't want to just sit around. I clean the garage so many times, mow the lawn. Okay, what do I do at 11 o'clock? It's just not in my nature. So initially we started thinking, hey, I would want to raise a few cattle. Sure. Just to give myself something to do, nothing crazy. And we first started looking at Angus and thought, that would be kind of fun. And then up at the lake one weekend, we had a bunch of family and friends up, and I love to grill. And so I thought, I'd been hearing about this Wagyu. This is like 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. And I thought, hey, I'm going to try this. I'm going to barbecue grill up some steaks for family and friends and see what they think, Mm-hmm. And so I went on and got some A5 Wagyu off the interweb. And then I went and we bought some Heart brand Akaushi stuff, red Wagyu. And I had all these people over, and I cooked the steaks individually, like 2 or 3 of the same, put them out, cut them in slices, had everybody try it. And we got to the Akaushi, right? And I loved it. I mean, and I love the black Wagyu, don't get me wrong, it's fantastic. But there was just something about the Akaushi that really drove me to, man, I love this. It had the same buttery, rich flavor, yet I thought it had that prime Angus beef push from behind. And for me, I thought this is it. And of all the people, and I think there was almost 30 people there, the Akaushi won over hands down.
Even up against the A5 Wagyu.
Even against the A5. And don't get me wrong, they all loved it.
Oh, yeah, they're all
It's
wonderful,
great
I'm sure.
beef.
Oh, yeah, all of them would be great.
But everybody felt like they could just eat a little bit more of the Akaushi, and they just loved the more of the prime Angus beef push coming from the back end of it.
It's kind of like, and I'm glad you mentioned that, even looking at, because if you have Angus, you had Angus, you had Akaushi, you had Wagyu, and basically, I mean, people are used to Angus, so it's good, and I'm still an Angus breeder.
Absolutely.
It's good, and then you get all the way over to Wagyu, and yeah, it's great. It's its own thing, but it's almost so far off in left field. It's getting away from like a traditional beef flavor. It's more of it's really buttery, really rich. Can be almost overpowering and or just the flavor and texture is so far away from what people are used to that for me, sometimes it's a little much. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because in between the two, the Akaushi, to say, hey, this is sweet, this is rich, this is a cut above the Angus, but it is still beefy. And it's still beef, not way off in left field. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's as true, really. I think it's almost more of a valid comparison to say, hey, I took 30 of my friends and I grilled all 3 right here. That's almost, for me, more of a valid comparison across those beef types than just saying like, well, this chef said, or that study said, or this sensory panel says. Like, no, like in the real world, sitting with my friends with the grill out, this is what we saw and what we liked.
And, it was that point, because when we got to that point, we started thinking about what do we want to do, and we're getting close to thinking about it. And I had done some research, at least a couple years before I spent a nickel in this business, and I wanted to know with what we were getting involved in. And initially, we were looking at the black, because I wanted to do something different than Angus, because I wanted to do something different.
Sure.
A little
Everyone
bit
has
more,
Angus.
yeah, something different. And so once we did that, it was at that point that I thought, okay, I got to do some more research on this Akaushi. And as I dug into it, I found that I liked the phenotypical Akaushi.
Yeah, the cattle are better.
For me, it just fit me. And I'm not bad-mouthing the black at all. For me, it just was more eye-appealing. Yeah. It was something that I would much rather have in my pastures, me personally.
Same.
And I kept following it, and I was watching you in your website a lot for years before I even contacted you. I checked you out on YouTube, and there were some older videos, and I thought, okay, they were good and stuff, but I was waiting for more and so forth. So I did a lot, and I realized that this was the breed that I wanted to see. And I looked around the area, and I didn't really know anybody. I didn't see anybody who had any. I'm from Wisconsin. Sure. And so our first real hands-on, eyes-on experience to these cattle were when we came out to visit your ranch. Yes. And I had went to a couple black ranches in the area, and I'd seen them, and they're great. But when I went to your ranch and was able to get my eyes on them, and prior to that, I knew that that's the direction we wanted to go. Sure. But it just solidified it. Oh. I mean, and it was just, this is, and the boys and my wife, we all made the trip. Yep. And it was the best trip that we've ever made, because it just totally confirmed the fact that this is the direction we wanted to go. Yeah. And, I don't jump into anything just willy-nilly. Yeah. Knowing that there's risk involved in anything that you do, and I wanted to mitigate the risks as much as possible, just like anything that we do in business. But we just felt like that was a great fit for us, and meeting you, it was great, because your knowledge and your love for the breed, it was clear. The passion you have for this breed, and I had the same passion. I'm sure I drove you crazy for the months before we actually went out there, because I was asking so many questions, and I wanted to have as much information as possible. That's just my nature. Well,
and I want to jump on just 2 things here to jump into your story. There's 2 things you've already mentioned that I think are really key to anybody that's maybe in that same spot. There's a lot of people that are in that same spot you've mentioned. It's like, hey, I've tried this beef and I think it's awesome, or I've been watching kind of from afar, or considering getting into it, but I'm not sure, or maybe I've jumped just barely on the front edge and they're still figuring out maybe a game plan for what they're going to do. But I think 2 things in your story that stand out to me. One would be that you've been a student of the breed, and I think you've done a wonderful job. I mean, you gobble up information, you know what I mean? Like, there's people that learn, and there's people that learn quickly, and you have learned quickly. I've been really genuinely impressed, you know what I mean? You dig into things deeply, and you understand. You have taken a really accelerated course in understanding what this breed is, but then you took the time to come and visit, and I think that's a spot that, I completely understand. Everybody's super busy. We've all got a million things on our schedules. It is hard to fit in the time to go physically see the cattle. But going out and taking the time to be present at the ranch, there are things you were able to see in Weston, Idaho, being physically present that you wouldn't have otherwise maybe had your head wrapped around entirely. There's bulls that you saw that I maybe would have rather you hadn't, that you now own.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
You had a great eye, picked out some awesome individuals, and you learned.
I won't talk about your sales technique in regards to trying to spin somebody away from the cow.
Please don't buy the very best ones.
But we caught on to that relatively quick and said, this isn't my first time around the blocks. I know what's going on here.
We started wandering through those cows, and I remember, obviously there's a whole pile of cows, and there's cows within that set that I'd like to breed, and there's cows within that set that are intended for sale, and you found really quickly the ones I was intending to breed. And I remember being out there in Weston and chatting with you and your boys and Amy, just a wonderful trip, and I just remember turning to your boys like, your dad doesn't get out negotiated very often, does he? Anyway, a wonderful trip, but I think so worth the time and effort you put into being physically present. And I think it's one of those things, like the invitation is always open to anyone that would like to come and visit, that would like to come see the animals in person. And it's an opportunity that I think, I look back even early on in my career in cattle, I probably didn't take advantage of that opportunity often enough, because you're always looking like, oh man, can I be gone for a week? And you got to buy the flights and the hotels, and just the time is the biggest thing. So I probably didn't go as many places early in my career as I should have. But what a value it's been to me to visit other ranches and to go meet other people. And I think a huge edge that you had coming in early before you'd made significant investment, you knew what the cattle were. You had been, and specifically you saw Katie Maru. You saw the cat, you knew what she was. So when we were sitting a year ago at this convention in Fort Worth, everyone else was sitting there looking at the first time we let one of these go to public auction. We had put up a heifer pregnancy from Katie Maru, the option's there. She's neat to everybody. The picture's neat, the pedigree's neat, the story's neat, but you had been there. You knew what the cow was, and I think that gave you a tremendous edge to understand what it was that you were looking at buying and what she was worth. Because you mentioned the other thing that you mentioned already at this point in your story that I think is clutch. It costs a lot of money to do this. It costs a lot of money to buy cows. It costs a lot of money to make embryos. It costs a lot of money to put them in. Feed bills are huge. It is not a cheap thing to get into. And I think sometimes a more common approach that you'll see from a lot of people, one, they'll maybe skip out on some of the research that you did, to your credit. Two, they'll skip out on going and physically seeing the cattle, which is another thing I thought you did right. But three, instead of going out and understanding here's the value, for example, in that Katie Maru heifer pregnancy, and then investing in that quality to build from like you did, instead they go and say, well, there's all these cattle and they're all cheap, and I got this buy and I got that buy, and I bought a whole pile of cheap cows, and now all I have is a huge feed bill and a huge embryo bill, and I've got functionally nothing to work with. Like, people, generally speaking, would be way better off to say, hey, I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to go see these animals. I'm going to find the best of the best of the best, things like Katie Maru and her daughters. I'll spend what I need to get them, because truthfully, out of all of the dollars you've had to spend to put together your cattle, your facilities, your operations, it is a tiny portion of it that it costs to get that quality that now you can build from that and you can make embryos, or it's worth spending the feed money to make more daughters from that female. And anyway, we're barely really even at the front edge of your story, but I think those 2 points, the understanding the quality, spending the money on the quality, and understanding that, hey, it's going to cost a lot of money no matter what you do, so get the quality instead of just having a whole bunch of random whatevers that were cheap that you're going to cost you a bunch of money and you're not going to have anything when you're done. So
Right. I agree. I mean, the best thing that we could have done was to go out and actually physically see with what we were looking to invest in. Mm-hmm. Now, and I'm not a foolish person who understands that we bought a bunch of pregnancies initially, right? Yep. And we're smart enough, and I've done enough research to understand that just because you get that pregnancy and you look at mama and you look at daddy, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have that exact type of animal. Yeah. But it was a risk that we wanted to take because we knew we had the great foundations. But going back, when we first showed up at your place, what we thought was so great is that you and your crew, which are awesome, you would bring one into the show ring. We could walk, we could walk around, see them walk around, see them move. We could find out what their temperaments were like, and that's a big deal for us, being older and I'll say novice. We certainly didn't want to have animals chasing us up over the fence or hurting anybody. So that was a really big thing, and it still is to this day, and it will be. No matter how good you are genetically, if you're not good temperament, you're not going to be. You're going to be meat soon, very, very soon.
Right.
And that's just the way it is. But when we seen, and we got our eyes on, I think it was 577, 919, 121, and then Gina or Katie Murray. And man, she is just she is awesome. You can walk up to her and pet her. And we were talking about the calf that I purchased at the auction, and this calf is phenomenal. I mean, she's everything that a guy could ask for in a heifer calf. She's close to weaning. We're going to wait to the 205 day just because. And we've been tempted to put her on the scale and see, and I can go to the corral, and she could be on the other end of the corral. She sees me. She literally will walk the 226 feet, walk up to me and pet her. She's what we call an in your pocket, right? And she is as sweet as can be. We're going to put the halter. We're going to start putting that on her when I get back because she's ready for that. And she's just fantastic. We're excited about her. We feel like we hit a home run. And then, and I'll just go into it after that. After buying the one in auction, I reached out to you on some other ones, and we were able to put a deal together, and we're super excited. So we have a Big Al, Katie Maru on the ground. She's coming along really nice.
Very excited about that heifer for you.
The Hikari is really fantastic, and we've got the Hanjo being delivered today.
Yes, arriving while you and I are
arriving at the farm. I really love that one because it's got the three stacks, the 3 shots of Katie Maru in that pedigree. And so we're really excited about it. And so when we were there, we knew that this is the route we wanted to go, and we found the animals that we wanted to do, and we then had a crash course in embryos and what you can get, and we wanted all females because we wanted to build a herd. I didn't need a bunch of bulls. So we found how difficult sometimes that can be. And
reverse sorting semen is easier said than done at times.
And we were able to get nearly everything that we wanted. The 919 was a little bit more of a challenge for us, but that's doing it now.
Right.
I understand it 100% how difficult that can be. We're super excited for them calves. We know that they will be cornerstones. We know for sure our 2403 Miss Katie is going to be a cornerstone for us. She's never leaving our farm, and she's going to be there for life. And we're excited. We absolutely, I in particular, I love these animals.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're so much different. Like, we have a lot of Angus recips. They're good animals too. Sure. They're good, but they're different. Sure. There's something different about them, and these animals are just fantastic. And I love everything about them. And so I enjoy it. Yeah. I enjoy it, and I do a lot of the feeding. I purposely do some hand feeding at least a couple times a week while they're in the corrals, so that they get to know me, and I can walk up to a lot of them. I'm not, pet them. None of them are chasing me around, and that's what we love. We want to have docile animals, and that's our key. But that was great. And when we met with you and your crew there, we just got the comfort level of that this is the right thing. And I knew at that point, you and I built a really good relationship, a neat little bond right away when we met. And I knew that I would have a resource and somebody that I could trust and somebody that I could go to, and it was great, and I've taken full advantage of it. You can check.
My wife will ask me every day. We sit down and grab lunch. She says, "Have you chatted with Doug yet today?" Oh yeah, we caught up on this and caught up on that.
It's him again.
No, it's been fantastic, and I so appreciate it because as you and I have been able to both develop that friendship, but also we've chatted through a series of different things as you've built out your genetic program and made a neat series of acquisitions from my program, from other programs, and talking through what you're doing and how you're doing it. I'd so much rather be talking to you now as you're building everything out and figuring out all of it than have it be, hey, 1 year, 2 years down the road, and you're backed into a corner you didn't intend to get to that might have been preventable. You know what I mean? Had we talked about, let's tweak the facility design a little this way, let's tweak our production processes a little that way, let's run ideas. And I've been able to learn from you too. You know, you've got a distinct set of experiences from mine, and it's been fun for me to learn from your business acumen, learn from what you've done in construction. Has been an enjoyable process for me. So as you're looking at your experience and your entry into Akaushi and maybe paralleling it, there's a lot of people very much in the same boat that they've had a career in something else. They're just getting going with cattle and or the Akaushi breed. As you look at your entrance and that initial base that you've established, what are the things you say, hey, I would do this again for sure, like this was a good thing about building out the base of my herd? And what are things you say, hey, maybe I would pause on that or wait on that, or I would change this about my entry into the Akaushi breed?
Sure. I think the biggest thing that I've found, besides the cattle, is that, and I'm guessing most people that you're dealing with have businesses and so forth, and they understand the importance of policies, procedures, and knowing your numbers and understanding your financials and where you're at. Right. And when you get into this industry, that is something that you really need to be keen on, because it doesn't take long and you can spend more money than you thought.
Oh man, yes. If you want to rack up $100,000 bill, just call up Transova. They'll get you.
You have to know your numbers. So before anybody who's getting into this has to understand that you got to sit down and put a spreadsheet together of what your anticipated costs are, and then bump that up by 25%,
right?
Because it's just the way it is, and understand with what you can and can't do. Because the last thing you'd want to do is get into this thing and find yourself behind the 8 ball, that you spent too much. It'll take the fun out of it, right? You have to understand, and each person's going to be different of what they can and can't do. But cattle-wise, the best thing that I did was to go out there and visually see with what we were going to purchase and what we were going to expect. That was the best thing we did. The pregnancies are great. I love it. It is a great opportunity, and we've been really blessed with the pregnancies. We've had really no issues with them, and all the calves, I would say not all, but 90% of them are meeting or exceeding our expectations of where they are.
You bet.
In their growth rate.
Yep.
We've got a couple that are like, well, come on, girls,
let's
go,
pick
it up.
Yeah.
And they have, we have.
And that's normal.
We have 5 of the same cross, right? Which is the Hikari 121, which
very excited about that cross.
Which are the only ones out there.
The only ones out there.
And
they're all at your place. You bought them all.
All at my place, and there are 3 of them that are up and above. They're fantastic. There's another one that's just a little bit behind. And then there's another one that you're like, what's wrong with this one? And it's just the way that it goes. I mean, and we're hoping
not all my siblings are as good looking as me either.
Yeah, me either. Nobody else has the athletic builds that I have. So
I prefer to call my body type curvaceous, but maybe that's a conversation for another day.
But they're all doing great, and we're excited about all of them. The Shigs and the 121s, the 919 and the Outback. And she had a little bit of setback. She's the only one that we had scours with, and I spent time with you. And
that's a normal thing to run into that and dealt with it.
It was a little bit.
It's disconcerting. It's scary.
Our first deal. We don't want to lose this calf. What do we do? And you gave me great advice, and we have a great vet, and we were able to work with them, and she's doing good. She's really gaining now. She had a couple weeks where it's a setback.
It takes some time to get past that.
Yeah, and she's doing great. So with that being said, we are extremely excited about what we purchased, and we feel like they're really good quality animals.
Yeah, and I would pause you just real quick right there, because I think that's another component. You mentioned the quality of the animals, because I've got it right there on my website, and we've tweaked the wordings a couple different times as to how we've said it, but right on the landing page of the website, I believe the current iteration, because Haley handles all this stuff because she's better at it than me. But it takes the same amount of time to feed poor quality cattle
And they eat
and
just
money.
as much.
They eat just as much. Takes all the same time and money to feed poor quality cattle as it does good ones. Don't waste your resources. Feed quality cattle. Get quality cattle. Start with something good, because when even looking at me, I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years. Like, this is all I've ever done. Like, I didn't start mixing mortar. I started feeding bottle calves, right? And this is all I've ever done. And for me, my number one expense, it isn't buying donors. It isn't anything else. It's feed. Feed is number one by far and away. And I'll spend more on feed and more on just embryo production and transfers and more on recipients all than I do on genetics. So why would I spend all that money on feed and on recips and on embryo transfer to multiply anything less than the best? So I think I just wanted to pause you there. You have put the money and time and effort into the quality, and I think that's one of the big takeaways from your story. You started right rather than getting backed into a corner and being in a mess and having to dig yourself back out because you've got a whole bunch of stuff that was all cheap and has no genetic direction and no quality at the base of the thing.
Well, we don't have a large ranch, so we have 200 acres, and of that, not all of it is grazing land. Yeah. So we've got about 130 acres of grass that we can have, and so we knew that we couldn't just stockpile a bunch of animals, and we don't have the luxury of saying, hey, let's take these, cross this, and see if it works out, right? And we just didn't. And I'm not your age. Sure. So we all know how long this takes.
Yeah, it's a slow
from beginning
process.
To see a calf, to see if you're looking at 2+ years. Mm-hmm. And we needed to bypass that. Yeah. And I think a lot of the people that are getting into it, that you're probably dealing with, are in the same situation I am. They're in their 50s or 60s or whatever it might be. And if I was 30 years old, I could probably think about doing that, looking and building it a little longer. But we needed to jump in and kind of get the game rolling.
Have the quality.
So one of the things, animals, we don't have any really regrets on anything that we purchased early on because we feel like we bought some really quality stuff. Yeah. The regrets that I have personally is that I got so excited about everything that I got into the embryo game a little bit, right? Sure. Where I was buying lots of embryos, and it's cool. Yeah. You don't really understand the success rate I didn't really understand the success rate of the embryos, and I didn't really understand that, we would purchase some more animals along the way, and some of the embryos that we bought just aren't even as the same quality of what we actually have on the ranch. Yeah, so I've got a bunch of embryos that I'm like, I probably won't even use these, at least not right now. Sure. And then we went out, and I thought I needed to have a huge semen bank. Okay, so I went out and I was buying 2 straws of this, 4 straws of this. I've got way more semen than I'll probably ever use in my lifetime. And that's a mistake. So I would say, look, figure out with what you're going to do, and then go out and get with what you need. Yeah. You don't need to have a huge inventory of semen that you might not ever use. Because you have to have the cows first to see what the genetics are that you really want to cross it with, and so forth. So them were the 2 things that I look at, and my wife would be like getting an invoice in the mail going, don't you think you have enough? I'm like, you're right, I do, but this was a really good deal, and
This one was super cool, though.
There will be some things coming for sale from the Slaby Akaushi website of some things we purchased. I think they're all really good, but they're just not going to fit with what direction we are in now.
Right.
And that's something I think you can just take your time on that. You don't need to rush into that. So that's something, and you should just buy them as you need them. You don't need to stockpile a bunch because it takes a long time to use them up.
Oh yeah, it's so easy. Like it's one of the very, very, very most common traps to fall into. I've been in the same boat. Most everybody I've ever dealt with has been in the same boat. It is so much easier to buy embryos and semen than it is to turn them into calves on the ground. It is an enormous process to go from calves and semen to stuff on the ground. And if you want to just rack up a bill, go start making a bunch of embryos and say, hey, here's 5 cows, and take them to Transova, and they'll gladly take them, and they'll do you a good job. I mean, this is not an anti-Transova by any means, but their job is to make you embryos, and they will. And they'll say, you know what, we made you a pile of embryos, and here's the bill.
Here's your bill.
You know?
Absolutely. Yep.
So, yeah.
So, you know, we were talking about like some of the challenges and some of the things you wouldn't do. And so I think our biggest challenge has been the reproduction part.
Sure. Okay? It's hard. It's hard.
So I watched your website. I probably know it by heart. You know, new people should start with live cover. Then you should move to AI. Then you should look to... Well, we skipped all.
Just went straight to
We went
ET.
right to the embryos, you know. And I remember our first round of 12 Angus that we ran through our recips, and we were excited. We did it ourselves. The vet came out, showed us how to do 1 or 2. Then my oldest son, he has a passion for that, and he got into it, and he wanted to do the protocol. And I'm like, great, good.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Yep.
So we were kind of doing it. In our first 12, we had Transova show up. We didn't do the stickers. Mm-hmm. We didn't really do the monitoring like we were supposed to. This was all new to us, and you live and learn. And we had Transova show up, and we were collecting some oocytes too, so they weren't there just for embryo. And so we had ran some cows through for oocytes, and then they came, and we're like, yep, let's run them through. We had all these embryos ready to put in.
There's
we got one that was showing heat. And, you know, it's like, okay, well, it was our shots. You know, we weren't quite getting it through that pop through the neck, that I guess we'll call it that thin layer of muscle there. We weren't getting the penetration. So we lived and learned. And then now, you know, I think we're at 100% of getting them all ready.
Getting them in heat.
Getting them in heat, not successful.
Well, and it is, there's so many pieces. You know, you talk about an embryo program because it's such a common thing. You know, it's not just you. Like, if anything, that's pretty standard that people say, hey, it's way exciting because there's an opportunity, and here's a neat embryo I can make, or a neat embryo I can buy, or there's this cool donor and this cool semen, I'll make these embryos. But then, like you said, number one, we got to get the recips, which you did. But then we got to run this protocol, and it's got to be exactly the right shots at exactly the right time and exactly the right way, or it won't work appropriately. Then we got to monitor for heats as tight as we possibly can, and if we don't, we might find out that, it didn't quite go how we'd hoped. And then we got to get all the embryos transferred, and even if we do everything perfect, there's still plenty of times that there's not a great success rate on that. And then I still have all the bills for the cows and the protocols and all my time and all my labor and all my effort, plus all the embryos I put in that didn't make calves, and now all I have is a bunch of open cows, you know, to show for this bill, and there's only this small chunk that's pregnant. So it's one of those that obviously I spend a ton of time and effort and money doing exactly that, but it is challenging because there's so many pieces, and if one tiny component is out of line on an ET program, all of a sudden all we've got is bills, and we don't have calves coming that we'd like. And so it is not at all, that is more the norm than the exception for the first. And I had the same probably 2-3 years of getting beaten to death before we really dialed in enough components to where we consistently stick cows at the level we do.
You know, we constructed our facilities for that purpose, so that we could do that because it was new. It was something that we knew we wanted to do. And we felt like the more that we could do on farm, the more that we can control. Sure. The more that you can control yourself, our business philosophy is the better chances of success that you have, or at least the better chance of meeting your goals. Your personal goals may be different than your personal goals, and anybody else who's watching. So we felt like that was the best opportunity for us. We knew that there was going to be challenges. We knew it, but
you're not afraid. I wouldn't say scared. Afraid is not a word I would ever associate with Doug Slaby.
No, we're not scared. But the thing of it is that if we don't take with what we learn and apply it, then we're being foolish. And we've now gotten past that hurdle.
Yeah, you've got babies coming. You've got ET calves coming.
We've got quite a few coming, and we're hovering at just under the 33% success rate on our embryos. And
which, truth be told, for jumping right to ET without having live cover in place, AI in place, previous track record of it, I mean, is really truthfully quite good to be at 33%, honestly.
Yep. We're just under it, and we've got 18 more to check when we get back. On Monday. So we're hoping
move that right up,
get
jump
above
right
that
up there.
33%. And
You bet.
we've done IVF on everything, so we've frozen it, and we've reverse sorted.
Frozen
90%
reverse sort
of all of
IVF
our
embryos. That's hard.
So our embryo bank is 90% sexed, female.
Which is awesome. That's great.
And we're blessed that we work with Transova in Madison, and they have been fantastic.
That is a fantastic satellite. Not all of the facilities are created equal. They can all, how's the way to put it? So within any given facility, there's a series of companies that can do ET, and even within Transova, there's a series of locations. But then within those locations, some can sort and some cannot. And I would second what you say there. That facility, that satellite in Wisconsin, is as good as any as far as being able to effectively reverse sort semen to make embryos from your choice of sires in a heifer sex embryo.
We've done Master Chef, we've done Umamaru, we've done Hanjo, we've done Hiramitsu, we've done Phoenix, we've done them all, and we've not lost one straw.
Yeah, which is awesome.
God.
And atypical, because it's not the same in every single lab that you send to. Quite often the call comes in and they say, hey, not only did we not make female sexed embryos, but we torched 2 straws of foundation semen. What bowl do you want to use as a backup?
Right.
In a conventional setting, not sexed, because we're out of time to try to sort again, anyway. I would tip my hat to that crew that you're working with there at Wisconsin. That's a good facility.
Yeah, they're awesome, and we love working with them. And so, that was probably be our biggest challenge that we've had, was learning that procedure. And I feel like we're catching on. I feel like we're getting our feet underneath us pretty well. We're understanding it a little bit more, and I think we're in the right track there to keep things moving forward.
Yeah, walk us through. You mentioned your facility that you're doing work on there with your embryos, and I have loved watching that process come together as you and I have talked about it. And again, I just appreciate you talking with me at all, because you're the one that built it. You put up the money, you bought the land. You could have built it however you wanted. You know what I mean? You didn't have to involve me in that process at all. But I so much enjoyed getting to be a part of that as we kind of laid that out, because for me, I'd so much rather get a chance to kind of look at all of it and I guess apply the years that I've spent doing it, as far as flowing the cattle, and then combining that with all of your years of experience and being able to build a facility like that and bring together a really, really neat spot. And then you're calling me, saying, hey, we've got this neat facility, instead of calling me 2 years down the road and saying, hey, I built the facility without ever talking to someone, looking at it from the cow's perspective more so than just the construction end or just what makes sense to us as people. And now we've got problems with flow, and we've got people getting hurt, and we've got this, I wish this was set that way, and I wish this was set that way, and none of this works well. It was such an enjoyable process, because for me, historically on my place, everything I'm doing, I'm building around existing structures a piece at a time.
Sure.
And so there's components of that have worked really well. There's components that have worked really poorly, but none of it has been new from the ground up in our setting. It's all been, piece at a time, piece here, piece there, building around what's existing. So I'd never had the chance prior to working with you on your facility to say, hey, let's go from the ground up and let's just build it the best way, instead of saying, well, we're going to have to work around what happens to be present and do it a piece at a time, like what I've done at home. And so enjoyed that process, working with you on that design. But walk us through, I guess, how that all went as far as putting that facility together, what you would do the same and what you do different. Because I couldn't be more excited about how it turned out. I mean, an awesome facility.
We absolutely love it. So what happened was that we sat down as a family, and we talked about what are our needs. We know we wanted to cover hay. Yeah. So we knew we needed that. We wanted to be able to separate animals in the corral system. We're in winter. Yeah. We're going to be bringing them in. Unfortunately, if it would freeze and stay frozen, we would keep them out of pasture and feed them with hay, but it just doesn't anymore. Sure. So we know we got to have to keep them in the corrals. And you and I came up with a fantastic corral system. It works so great. We have gates in the right spots. We can cut, we can sort, we can hold, we can do whatever we do. Of everything that we built, that corral system is great, and it works fantastic for us. So we love that. The barn itself, we know we needed storage for repairs and equipment and so forth. So we built that. And the barn itself, I wanted to make sure that we were calving as much as we could inside.
Sure.
Because of our calving dates with us just getting started, we took whatever we could get.
Sure.
We can't set it. We will here, this next year, we'll still calving whenever, but then we will then try to get twice a year.
Sure.
We'll shoot for spring early, and we'll shoot for fall early.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to try to do, but it takes a while to get to that point.
Sure.
So we knew we wanted to calve inside, and so we have a 6-pen facility with waters covered and with great corral systems, and we've calved every single calf that we've had, and it's been, I think we're at 24. 24 calves in that, and we've calved them all inside, and it's been great. We've only lost one calf, and that was a stillborn. And you know, it was sad, but we're really happy with what we have.
Yeah.
So that works great. Initially, our alleyway, getting them in the alley was great. Getting them to the bud box was great. We had to make some changes because they were seeing out. So we ended up
blacked out that gate.
We blacked out that gate, and then we could keep them a little bit more. And due to our inexperience, mine in particular, just working them in the bud box to get them into the shoot area was a little bit of a challenge, especially with the younger heifers.
Sure,
right?
sure,
They
absolutely.
just didn't want to go in.
They just want to sit there and
we
spin.
have a
Yep.
one of the changes that we're going to make here this summer is we have a AeroQuip hydraulic chute inside the area, inside the ET room is what we'll call it, and it's loud. So we're going to move that motor outside of that room and into the barn area so that it does, because it gets in there, it's metal liner, acoustical ceiling, it's, you know, it just reverberates a lot, and it does spook them. But now we have that box down to where it works really well. Initially, I was going to say that was the one thing that I would
That
change.
you would change, would be changed
But
to
now
that box.
I'm not.
I'm gonna leave it
We
the same.
like it.
Yeah.
It works really well, and I figured out how to get them to move around, which way to turn them so that they come right around. And sometimes you got to run them around twice. It's just the way
Sure.
it is.
Yep,
But most of the time now we're running the same cattle through. They're coming right into the box. We leave the gate open. They go right in. I don't even have to put them in the box. You know. And then we've learned to use the gates on the alleyway for the corrals as moving them forward. So it's worked out really nice. We like it. The inside in the, we'll call it the ET room, we have a sick pen in there. Worked out really nice. We brought that
that calf that was
heifer with
scoured.
the scours and
Yeah.
the mama cow in. The one thing we've learned out from that is, remember I talked to you that boy, she got really aggressive.
Right.
But we found out that it's the separation.
Right. It's being
It's
alone,
the
being
isolation
on their
that
own. You
made her
bet.
the way she was. And once we got him back out with the rest, she's great. But we like that so we can separate that so we don't have that pathogen running wild in the other. Because at the time we had
Bunch of
4 of the
babies.
other 5 pens with calves in it. And so that works out really well. That space is heated and cooled. We have an overhead door that we can let them in that's insulated. So we do most of all of our oocyte in the winter. And we'll do some embryo transfers as it gets in the early summer. It gets a little bit warmer. But we can cool that. And we can get it at that 70 degrees easy. We can heat it up, and it works great. We do have a HEPA filter system in there for the oocytes. So we're collecting the dust. When we do the collection, it is clean.
Love it.
Clean.
Love it.
While we're doing the embryo transfers and some of the AI, not so much because it's just running them through the protocol to get them ready. It's a mess, and you gotta mitigate your time. We have a great office with windows. The oocyte laboratory is right there, so while they're collecting it, they can go right in there in our office, watch what's going on, and they can let us know with what, how many good ones and what we were able to send to the lab. So we love everything about that. We've got a rotational grazing system. Right now we're struggling. We had a super cool spring, and our clover has taken off, and we're working through that.
You bet.
We don't want to put them out there and have them all die of bloat.
Right,
So
right.
we're working through that. We don't have them on grass as early as we want to, but we're working through it. We're probably just going to bale it in baleage and then let the grass come up now that it's warm enough.
Sure.
So
You bet.
that was some of the challenges. We have complete water lines run through our whole pasture system that we can just quick connect our tubs
Love it.
and so forth. So we love everything that we have. Honestly, and you've
an
played
awesome deal.
such a huge part in the corral system and the barn layout. And we went through. We have design staff too, and they would go through some of the things too. And bigger facilities we were more comfortable at designing. It was the smaller structures with the smaller uses in the more of a confined space. We need. That's when I reached out to you and got your expertise in regards to what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And it's worked out great. I wouldn't change a thing.
Love it.
Change a thing. It's great. The asphalt around the facilities,
gorgeous.
Love it.
Gorgeous.
Love it. It takes a beating, and it is what it is. But as far as like keeping the dust down,
it's huge.
Keeping it clean in the snow, it's great.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do anything different on that.
No,
that is the best money spent. Was that.
And just such and like I said, I mean, just to have it put together in a way that the cattle will flow, because I have been in facilities before where it makes all the sense in the world, I guess, like kind of to a human eye or to a human eye, like it's pretty, it's sharp, it's nice, but the cows hate it. Like it's not designed to flow. And yours is designed to flow. Those cattle come through. The parts that need to be heated are heated. The parts that don't need to be heated aren't. I mean, like it's cool, and it was a fun process.
We really love it, and we're excited with it, and we're excited to use it. Everything's going well.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you do now going forward. So after you made that initial acquisition for me, you got that set of pregnancies, and then you put together this really neat facility. From that point forward, you've made another series of really neat acquisitions from a couple of different locations. Any of those you'd like to highlight or talk about as far as some of your new things you've added to your program?
Yeah, so if I could just do a little background.
Please do. Please do.
So our business plan from day one has always been the meat. That's what we loved, right? Yeah. We love the meat. We feel like we're in a great market to be able to.
Already connected to a pile of people that would love to have.
We have a lot of connections to our facilities and our businesses and so forth, and we have a lot of demand. We feel like that's going to be a great niche for us. And because I love the genetic side of things, I love to just see what we can develop and so forth. And so we reached out and we made a few what we think are great acquisitions.
I'd agree.
We've got great cattle from you. We've got what we love is the Academy International 919 heifer calf. She's phenomenal. We've got a Brady heifer calf from you who's a little bit slow to grow for us, but I think she's young and she's growing really nice. So we love her, and they all have such great. So we got the 223E. She's a great donor. She's had a great calf. She's doing a great job on there. We've gotten quite a few from you. Our highlights are the Hikari 121s. The Outback 919, all the calves that we have, the Shigs 121s, Big Al calf, the 121, sorry, Big Al 121. So we're excited about them. They're young and they're coming up, but we did make some acquisitions here. We bought some really neat stuff from Legendary too. We've got a 2611, which is a Rusha Shig Haruko. We love her. We've got an 836K, which is a 518-74. We love her. We just recently bought a one and only Umaru times Nikki heifer calf. Nikki's gone, and there are no embryos around, so we're super excited about what we can do with her. And we've got an Umaru Z cow, one of three in the world, and I'm the only one who has it, and Legendary is going to keep the other two. We just recently went out and bought D18.
Love that. Love that.
That story, when we were at your ranch, you showed me that picture of that cow and the bulls that we bought, and I'm like, man, I love this cow too. She is in the category of the Ginas, the 121s, the 919, and I'm like, man, she is beautiful. I just love her.
Awesome.
And we have a cat. We have a heifer. You have the same. We have a Big Al. D18 heifer calf, who is just beautiful. And I've seen yours, and I've seen Jay's, and a few other people that bought them. And I thought, I can't go wrong. I got to have this cow. And I know there's big questions about how much she's paid.
Well, she wasn't cheap, but there was a good reason why she wasn't cheap.
But we know what she can do, and in the long term, we wanted her, and God willing, God allowed us, we were able to get her. So we're super excited about what we're going to do with her. We were able to get the 280F. It's one of a kind. And we're excited about her. We got Q4. We bought the 217 and 14 Red Emperor JC74s. I know I'm missing something, but we feel like we have a exceptional herd.
You've got
feel
some
like we've
really,
done
really good
everything that
pieces.
we can do to start off and give ourselves the best opportunity. And now that I won't want to make a plug, but what we're probably trying to do here, because I told you that we can't have 400 animals. Sure. We're different than you and some other guys out there. But as a new guy into this breed, I see the value in having something unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And having control over that specific animal. And as we've been talking, my sons and I and my wife, and we thought, what we'd like to do is to be able to provide opportunities for people to buy an exclusive.
Yes.
And what we want to be known as the exclusivity.
Yeah.
The home of the exclusive heifer calf.
You bet.
We want to be able to provide somebody from one of our donors, and we're not going to do all of them, but we'll do a couple from each one of our donors where we'll provide somebody the opportunity to buy either their herd sire that they believe in and they love, and they find would be a good cross with one of our donor cows, and they would buy that exclusivity, meaning we would never cross that animal with this donor cow again, that bull with this donor, and you have complete exclusivity to that heifer calf.
Yeah. Yep.
And you can do with what you want with it, and I think there's value there. There are a lot of great cattle out there, but the challenge as a new guy, being not able to maybe produce it as quick or do everything as quick is always wondering with what are the other 4 guys that are doing with this same cross?
Yeah.
Who are they crossing it with?
Right.
How fast are they getting them bred? This way, I think it gives a new guy an opportunity to do with what they want, collect the data on these animals, their calves, sell as little or as many as they want of them, make as little or as many, and I think it gives them a little bit of peace of mind.
Sure.
I have something unique, something that I can control, and we want to be able to provide that to people. So we won't do that with everybody. We really hope that it's somebody who has a herd sire that they really believe in, and that they just want to be able to have this special cross that they can then take in one. We'll give them an opportunity to put as many as the ground on they want, but they only can register one.
Right.
And that was what keeps the exclusivity.
Right.
And we'll give them a guarantee that we will never cross that again.
Yeah.
So we will have the one and only. And that's what we want to do.
And I think it's a neat opportunity you're providing there, Doug, because like we were talking about with what it costs to produce these animals, regardless of what you're producing, I honestly believe someone is way ahead to start with spending the money for something excellent, whether that is an exclusivity from D18, for example, whether that is a daughter of Katie Maru, like we've talked about, for example, or one of these other donors, 919, 121, these high-end females. If you start with an excellent base, cattle reproduce relatively quickly. Like your numbers will build. They'll grow. Like you'll get more cattle. You're way better off to spend the money for a good base and then multiply that than you are to say, hey, I'm going to blow through all the money with my feed bill and my transover bill and not have anything to show for it.
These 6 cows for $4,000 apiece.
Right.
But then what do you do with them?
What's the game plan?
You turn them into
What's
meat.
the long
Well, you've
term?
already got $4,000 invested in the carcass.
Yep.
Not to mention the feed and everything, your vet bills and everything associated with it.
Yep.
So the rate of return on that is pretty minimal. So then you got to try to sell it, and there's not a high demand for that from people who want that. So I think people are looking for that quality animal, something that's different than with what they have. And there might be people who have gotten into it that did exactly with what you're saying and saying, okay, enough of this, we got to get something that we really want to build our herd from. What we're seeing isn't what we want. And we didn't want to get, and I believe it was you, and I talk a lot with Michelle Johnson from Legendary.
Yeah, great lady.
You
Love
two
Michelle.
are probably my 2, what do we call them, mentors.
Appreciate that.
She's awesome, and you've been awesome, and there's other people that I talk with too, and I think it just boiled down to the fact that was the vibe that I got. And we have limited space. Look, if you have 10,000 acres, you can do whatever you want. You have flexibility, but when you're limited on acreage, then you really want to be able to make sure that you can put the best animals that you can, because you can't have them all. You know what I mean? And you're limited with what you can have. And if you can afford to put the best animals on your ranch and build from that, it's going to be easier and it's going to be faster.
Oh, man. And people are going to be happier because honestly, at the end of the day, if you got to pay the feed bill anyway, and you got to pay the ET guy anyway, and you got to pay for whatever anyway, do you want to have a D18 daughter or a Katie Maru daughter that you're looking at? Or do you want to be like, well, I guess I'm glad I bought her cheap because she's kind of a junker. You know?
Yeah, right.
You know?
The thing of it is, too, is that when we got into this, we are completely right or wrong or indifferent. Some people may not agree with me on this, but we have always said that we want to breed the maternal side.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Of everything.
100%. Say that again. You want to breed what side?
We want to really focus on the maternal side on every single calf that we put on the ground.
Absolutely.
Because what we're finding out too, there are great bulls, and there are going to be more. There's some great young bulls coming.
Some exciting bulls coming.
I've got one that I really believe in.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
we know that they're coming.
Yeah.
But the thing that we're losing is if you look at the pedigree. Yep, the top of the pedigree, you're always going to be able to have them foundation dams, right?
Yeah.
They're going to
or
be
the
there.
foundation sires.
So,
the bulls.
and dams, because some of them
Sure. I'm
through
seeing
the
what you're saying.
foundations.
Okay, yep.
But when you look at the bottom part of the pedigree, on the very bottom side of the pedigree, on the maternal side, you're going to eventually lose some of them official
Right, original imports.
And we need to, I personally want to try and bring them up front as much as I can and try and build off of there so that when we replace that die 8, that we've got a heifer calf from D18 or from Gina that's going to replace that, that's going to be in that same, and even we've improved on her strengths and brought in some of her weaknesses and made her a better animal.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we really are trying to do. That's what I've focused on all of my meetings.
Yeah.
And, I push the COI. You know this. And I think you said
I think it's a good thing. I think it's good. There's not any fear there.
I'm not afraid.
My friend, Mr. Slaby.
I'm not afraid of it, but we're responsible about it. There's one that we joke about. We have a calf coming that we were able to get some. We bought an older cow from Redstone, from Jennifer, awesome lady, and she was a double bred die 8 Maranami, and we crossed her with a double bred Highlander die 8, and we made female sex. We only were able to get 3 embryos from her. She's no longer with us. And we put 2 in. We sent them to Transover because at the time we were like, we're not really good at this, so I really want to see what we can do. And they went over for 2. We had 1 left. We put it in, not this last cycle, but the cycle before, and we got a heifer.
Got 1 heifer pregnancy.
So she is going to have 4 die
4 shots of die 8.
Now, like you said, your exact words, she could be a donkey, or she could be great. So we're kind of excited to see that, and if it doesn't turn out great, no one will hear much about her, because she'll just slide over into our meat program. No, and it's not a crazy COI. I think it's right around 22 because they're 1 generation back. Sure, yeah. But we're excited. We're not afraid to do that because we believe that could bring some value moving forward with the next calves.
There are 3 things you've mentioned that I want to double down on, or just, I guess, accentuate, I guess, because I think they bear mentioning. 1 would be line breeding, or specifically a higher COI. 2 would be the maternal side of things. And then 3, next generation animals, moving the breeding forward. So to, I guess, just add my comments to back yours, because I agree with you, looking at line breeding specifically. And this is one of those things that, often it's saying, hey, we just need to you hear a lot of chatter about, well, the COI's got to be low, the COI's got to be low, the COI's got to be low. But looking, even literally the logo sitting here on my chest, the Christensen Genetics logo, there is the outline of a bull here on the top of it. The outline of that bull is a bull called N-Bar Emulation EXT. N-Bar Emulation EXT would be the Angus bull that has registered more offspring than any other bull ever in the history of the entire American Angus herd book that was started in, I believe, 1883. And so if we're looking at this bull, this is the most influential bull in the most influential breed on the planet. N-Bar Emulation EXT, his sire and his dam are half siblings. So you want to talk about a high COI, they're both Emulation 31s. And so if we're looking at trying to lock up the best of the best, that's how you do it, is with line breeding. And like you'd mentioned, it's important that you not be scared, because there's times what line breeding will do will double down what is present in a pedigree. So if the animal's exceptional and it's something we really genuinely, definitively want more of, we're going to get more of that. Now, if she's bad, she's going to be doubly bad on the next gen when you line that up tight. So it is, you've got to be awfully confident, and I won't line breed just anything. You know, there are animals I will not line up super tight in a pedigree. There are animals I say I'd rather have minimal influence of them in a pedigree. But there are also animals like Katie Maru that I say, this is what I want more of. The greater degree of homozygosity. So I mean, go into straight up genetics 101, homozygosity versus heterozygosity. Homozygosity means 2 copies of the same gene. Heterozygosity means different copies of different genes. So if we want more consistent breeding animals, we want a greater degree of homozygosity within that genome. And so, I mean, even getting to a scientific level, if I want Gina's, Gina being the nickname for Katie Maru, the Katie Maru clone, if I want more animals like her, I want more shots of Katie Maru in the pedigree. So very much on purpose, we bred the Katie Maru clone to Honjo, who is a Katie Maru son. So it would be, I mean, technically, this is a son to dam mating, right? And we got heifers and bulls made from that, one of which is, there are only 2 females, one of which will reside in Wisconsin, one of which will reside in Idaho. And that was very much on purpose. And is that COI low? No. Is that intended to be low? No. Because the most influential animal in the Angus breed, EXT that I mentioned, was like that because he bred true. Those animals were consistently good cattle. Now, whatever's bad is going to be doubly bad as well. And that's why people say, well, if we're looking to just go with maybe the very safest approach, it's like, well, that's where the low COI approach comes in. We're like, well, they're not going to be great, but they probably won't be terrible either. We're kind of going with maybe the safe play.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, not all of mine are pushing the envelope, but we're not afraid to try one here or there. We try to keep it in that 10 and under, 12%, But we're talking logos.
Yeah, logos. I love that logo. Yeah,
that's Gina.
Is it? I love that.
That was taken
from
a photo that we had. I said,
that's
this
fantastic.
is what I want done. Make it out of Gina.
I love that. I love
Maru,
that. Yes, yeah, the Katie Maru clone.
And we love her. And we're just having fun. We're having fun with it. We feel like it's a great business. And what I love about this convention too is that everybody here is just, they're awesome. And
it's a wonderful convention to be at.
Open, and the discussions we have are great. And I think with anything, I think if you get stuck in your ways and you're afraid to think outside the box or to take a different step, I think we're then limiting the possibilities of what we can do with this breed. And I love this breed. I think this breed could be the next Angus. In time, obviously, it's going to take years and years. But I think, we have to work on being able to finish these things a little sooner. And if we can cut a few months by some of the things that we're doing through the genetic manipulation, but mating, to try and get that next animal that will provide that sooner marbling. And that's why we're doing tests on IMF and stuff. We're trying to see where they're at. And we believe in data. We believe in it, and we're gonna have our own. And and it's going to be our data that we'd be willing to share with anybody if they have interest in it. But it's really with what we're trying to do. Right. And not everybody does the same things.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's good that you're doing some of these unique and different things because that's what makes a program, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's good, like you mentioned, there's so many good people here from different programs with different ideas. For anyone that's looking to get into it or looking to start, I think you just need to define what it is you want to do. Or where it is you want to go, because that's what defines a program. If all you're trying to do is like, well, I saw so-and-so sold this for a bunch of money, so I'm going to breed just like so-and-so. Or, well, I heard so-and-so did this that brought about, so I'm going to try to be like so. Don't try and be like so-and-so or like so-and-so. Develop a program. Decide what it is you're going to do. You know what I mean? And that's what makes it a program, and it's what makes me excited about what you're doing. And to touch on those other 2 points of the maternal side and the next gen, and this is what I'm excited to watch with D18 specifically within your program and your Katie Maru daughters as well, especially that Rushaw too. As we look at those animals and what they'll do going forward, if we can't make something better than the original bulls, all we will ever do is breed to those, there's only 6, and breed to the original 6 import bulls, and we will sit there and we will circle the toilet bowl of average. That is all we will ever do, is roll right around average, exactly where the breed sat in 1994 when those animals entered the United States, or I guess 1976 for the first 2 and 1994 for the remaining 4. But if we look at those animals and all we ever do is, foundation, we are literally just circling average. The only way forward to improve in any given target, whether we're talking about improving in you talked about reduced days on feed or any other target, is to say, hey, this cow is so good, D18, Katie Maru, other animals like unto them, that they will make the sire better. So that when I have a son and I say, hey, I have the option sitting here today to use sire A or to use a son of that sire with D18 behind him or with Katie Maru behind him or whatever else, I'd rather use the son, because the son will be better because we've brought in a maternal line superior to the sire that's put on top. And that is genetic change. That is genetic momentum. That is what moves the breed forward and makes it competitive and makes it something that can improve, that there's any degree of improvement versus just circling average.
I mean, that's the exact reason why when we do the collections on some of these newer animals that we've acquired, and we do crosses, embryos and crosses, we will go conventional.
Yeah.
I am now ready
Yeah.
to put some bulls on the ground and see what we can do on that. Initially we weren't. We needed to build a female herd, and through acquisitions now we're ready. And we feel like we can bring something to the table on the other end of it, on the other spectrum, on the male side, on the bull side. So we're excited about that, and we're just excited about with what we're doing. We started off as this was, we started off, I think, with 13 animals with you. And they all showed up in October. I think you've seen the video of my son.
Big old trench.
And his comments on that. They just kept coming and coming and coming. And it was it's great. And
it was awesome.
We've grown the herd considerably since then. And people have said, well, you're kind of retired. I'm like, no, I'm not retired. It's not in my nature to just do something small, and it's just we're going to do it, and my sons have interest in it. My wife is 100% behind. She loves it, and she's just the best best woman in the world who stands behind all these crazy ideas that I have and things that I do. And we've got the support of the family. We've got the biggest part of our lives is the Lord Jesus Christ, who has saved us and who guides our lives every day. And we feel like he's been blessing us and pointing us in the right direction, and we're just going to keep going.
Love it.
That's it.
I feel lucky to count you as a friend, Doug. I'm grateful to work together on this and appreciate your friendship, appreciate your support of our business, and I look forward to seeing what you do with these genetics you've acquired from us and elsewhere.
I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your mentoring, and I appreciate all the advice, and I call you up with lots of different things, and probably a pain in your butt at times. But
it goes both ways. I've learned a lot from you.
From you on the animal side and on the animals themselves. And man, I look forward to this relationship continuing for many, many years, and I wish you nothing but the greatest success.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
You bet.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Got Any Cows podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, and visit us anytime at gotanycows.com.